What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. In this video, I'm going to be doing a penetration test with my 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, 44 Magnum, and 10 millimeter. I want to see the differences between them when shooting at water. Now, I've already done jacketed hollow points versus water with these three handguns. Now I'm going to do hard cast bear loads. And I've picked the deepest penetrating bear loads that I've tested so far in other media like wood, ceramic tile, sheet metal. And I want to shoot them at just some 1 gallon water bottles and see how many water bottles they penetrate through and see if there's a big difference between them. So from right to left, here we have my Smith & Wesson Model 500 with a 6.5 inch barrel. I got these custom night sights from Tool Tech Gun Sight. Here we have my Smith & Wesson Model 629 Performance Center. This is a 44 Magnum. It's an end frame. It's got a 2 5/8 inch barrel. And then here we have my Glock 20 Gen 4, has a 5.2 inch KKM barrel. And the ammunition I'm going to be using for the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, I'm going to be using some Buffalo Bore 440 grain Hardcasts. And these have an advertised muzzle velocity of 1,625 feet per second for 2,579 foot-pounds. And I've chronographed these and I get right around 1,600 feet per second and around 2,500 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. And that's this big guy right here, okay? 2,500 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. That's as much energy as a .308 Winchester. 440 grains. That's as heavy as a 12 gauge 1 ounce slug. Moving on to the 44 Magnum, I got the Underwood ammo 305 grain hard cast. It has an advertised muzzle velocity of 1,325 feet per second. And out of my 2 5/8 inch barrel, I get around 1,125 feet per second for 850 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. And that's this one right here. Okay. A lot of power. And then last but not least, we got the Buffalo Bore 10 millimeter heavy outdoorsman. This is a 220 grain hard cast, and I've chronographed it out of my Glock 20, and I get around 1,200 feet per second with this 5.2 inch KKM barrel, and that's 700 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. So I'm going to shoot these at the water bottles. Let's see how many water bottles they penetrate through. Take a guess, which one do you think is going to penetrate the deepest? Obviously, the 500 Magnum should theoretically penetrate the deepest, but water is much different than other media. And if you haven't seen the jacketed hollow points video that I did, I recommend you check that one out before you watch this one. I'll leave a link in the top right corner. But let's get started shooting and let's see what happens. All right, guys. Smith & Wesson Model 500, 6.5 inch barrel, Buffalo Bore, 440 grain hard cast. Let's see how many water bottles it'll penetrate through. All right, guys, pretty interesting results with the 500 Smith & Wesson Buffalo Bore 440 grain hardcast. Looks like it penetrated through 9 of these water bottles, which is more than double what the 300 grain flex tip from Hornady could penetrate. So look at all these water bottles here, just completely annihilated. And the force from that Buffalo Bore 440 grain hardcast, the energy actually split the wood here. Look at this. It actually split the wood. Okay? That is pretty insane. So, looks like it penetrated through 9 though. And then it bounced off the 10th one. So I'll show you guys the water bottles here. One of these water bottles was just split completely in half. Look at that. Check this out. Just split this one right in half. Here's one bottle. Here's another bottle. Look at this. Here's bottle number 3. There's my hole there. Bottle number 3. And then we have bottle number 4 over here. Okay. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay. And here's our bullet. Check this out. Here's our bullet, guys. Look at that. It lost its gas check. Oh no. Looks like it kept its gas check. Check that out. The nose flattened out quite a bit. So a lot of people, they use hardcasts and they think that hardcasts are like copper solids or safari solids. They're not. They're a little bit softer than copper. They're somewhere between lead and copper, so they'll still deform a little bit. Okay, you can see the nose kind of flattened out, but that's pretty impressive. Lots of energy. This bullet was probably hitting these water bottles at 1,600 feet per second. So that's 2,500 foot-pounds of muzzle energy from a 6.5-inch ported barrel. So let's check out some of these other ones. Here was my hit right there. There's my entrance hole. Here we got another one here. It's bottle number 8. See, it's pouring out that hole there. Here's bottle number 9. And then here's bottle number 10, and you can actually see it just bounced right off the bottle right there. There's like a little dent right there. So 9 water bottles with the 500 Smith & Wesson Buffalo Bore 440 grain hardcast. It's pretty impressive. Look at this devastation. Just tremendous amounts of power. 2,500 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Really impressive stuff. And it just split my board here. Kind of disappointed about that. I'm gonna have to buy a new board. Look at that, just split it. Alright guys, 44 Magnum snub nose, Smith & Wesson model 629 Performance Center with a 2 5/8 inch barrel, Underwood ammo, 305 grain hardcast. Let's see how many water bottles it can penetrate through. All right, guys, 44 Magnum snub nose Underwood ammo 305 grain hardcast. Surprising results. It actually penetrated the same amount of water bottles as the 500 Smith & Wesson. I really wasn't expecting that at all. So I want to just show you guys some of the devastation here on the ground. We got one over here. I hit it a little bit high. I was purposely aiming high because I didn't want to trash my board again. So here's one bottle. We got 2, 3, 4. And then here we got 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And it bounced off the 10th one. So there's the 5th bottle, 6th bottle, 7th bottle, 8th bottle, and then here's the 9th bottle. It just hit off on the left side, and then it bounced off the 10th bottle somewhere up here. Okay, so here's the 9th bottle. You can see it just punched a little hole here. That's really impressive, guys. I'm going to try to see if I can find the bullet. Definitely wasn't expecting that at all. This 44 Magnum has 1/3 the muzzle energy of the 500 Smith & Wesson. And all right, guys, Glock 20, 5.2-inch KKM barrel, buffalo bore, heavy outdoorsman, 220 grain hardcast. Let's see how many 1-gallon water bottles it'll go through. All right, guys, let's see how many bottles. We got 2 on the ground here. This looks like the first one. You can see the first one was just completely annihilated. Check that out. And here we have the second one with that clean hole there. So those were the first 2. Here we got bottle number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And looks like it went into the 9th. Oh, check that out. That's crazy. Look at that. It poked through the back of the 9th. Look at that, but it didn't actually punch all the way through, so the plastic is sealed around the bullet. That's pretty cool. So that's pretty crazy, guys. Almost 9 bottles completely for the 10mm. So pretty interesting results. 9 bottles for the 500 Smith & Wesson, 9 bottles for the 44 Magnum, and 9 bottles for the 10mm. Really interesting results. Now, obviously, these results would be a lot different if I put something in front of the water bottles, like some wood or some ceramic tiles or some kind of dense object. The 10mm and 44 Magnum would do much worse than the 500 Magnum. So pretty interesting results. Check this out. This is cool. Wow, look at that. That is just crazy how it's just like sealed. The plastic is just sealed around it. It's just so crazy looking. It's dripping out a little bit of water, but it's pretty much like a perfect seal. Check that out. Isn't that crazy? So I'm going to take these bullets home. I'm going to weigh them, see what kind of weight retention we got, take a closer look, and see what kind of deformation occurred. But I'm really impressed by this 10 millimeter. You know, I was a 10 millimeter skeptic for so many years, and now I'm a believer. Now I know why the 10 millimeter is so popular, because it can basically do 3/4 of what a 44 Magnum can do, but you get much less recoil and you get a lot of capacity. So I'm impressed. But 9 water bottles, guys. It's pretty impressive. Okay. So stay tuned. I'm going to take a closer look at these bullets, and we're going to weigh them and see what kind of weight retention we got. So stay tuned. All right, guys, so I want to weigh these bullets now, see what kind of weight retention we got. I was not able to find the 44 Magnum, but I was able to recover the 10 millimeter and the 500 Magnum hardcasts, but the 44 Magnum hardcast, I don't know where it went. So one interesting thing here is that the 500 Magnum hardcast flattened out. Okay, look at that. You see how it just flattened out completely? And it basically has like a perfect cylinder shape now. And you can see the rifling marks on the bullet. So a lot of people think that hard casts are as hard as like Safari solids, and they're not. Hard cast bullets are still lead. They just have a little bit of tin and antimony and zinc. So they're a little bit harder than regular lead, but they're still lead, okay? So they will deform, and depending on the alloy, a good cast bullet is not supposed to be brittle. If you have a cast bullet that's too hard, what'll happen is it'll become too brittle, and then you'll have huge pieces of the bullet break off when it hits something hard like a bone. So you don't want hard cast bullets to be too hard, because then they become brittle. You want them to be just hard enough so they deform a little bit like this one, but they still keep their mass, okay? There's no brittle chunks that break off, okay? So this one kept its gas check. See that? There's the gas check. Kept its gas check. And here's the 10 millimeter. 220 grain. Let's just have a size comparison here. Look at the size difference between the 10 millimeter and the 500 Magnum hard casts. Huge difference, okay? Look at that. Look at that meat plat. Huge difference in the meat plat. The meat plat is the flat part on the nose of the bullet. The meat plat is really important for being able to create a good wound channel. You want to have a big meat plat that can plow through tissue and bone. A bigger meat plat is actually better because, or wider meat plat is better because it won't deflect as easily when it encounters something like a bone or a hard object. So just give you guys a close-up look here, okay? And the 10 millimeter hard cast did not deform, because the 10 millimeter hard cast was traveling 400 feet per second slower than the 500 Magnum hard cast. Okay, so you can see that the 10 millimeter hard cast basically looks the same. The nose didn't flatten out, it didn't deform, but the 500 Magnum, the nose flattened out completely. And that's because the 500 Magnum was traveling 400 feet per second faster, around 1,600 feet per second. So that's 2,500 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. The 10 millimeter only generating around 700 foot-pounds, so 3 times as much energy. So 4 times as much energy with the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum versus the 10 millimeter. I mean, just look at the difference. Huge difference, but still the 10 millimeter is no joke. People in Alaska have stopped charging moose and brown bears with the 10 millimeter. So I have my 100-gram weight here. We're just going to double check the scale, make sure it's zeroed out. So looks like it's zeroed out. And let's just weigh these. So got 426.8 grains. So it actually lost 13 grains. That's pretty interesting. And then here we have the 10 millimeter. Wow, 100% weight retention. So as you can see, a higher velocity bullet, even if it's a hard cast, is going to lose some of its mass. But still, I mean, 13 grains is basically nothing. So I just want to show you guys the difference between the 500 Smith & Wesson and the 10 millimeter. Look at how the 500 Smith & Wesson hard cast flattened out. Okay, the nose just completely flattened out. Look at that. And that's because this one was going 1,600 feet per second, and it just flattened out when it hit that water, compared to the 10 millimeter, flattened out much less. Still flattened out, but not as bad as the 500 Smith & Wesson. And again, that's because this one is traveling 400 feet per second slower. So just wanted to show you guys that. That's pretty much it for this one, guys. If you want to see more 10 millimeter or 500 Smith & Wesson or 44 Magnum videos, check out my playlists. I'll leave a link in the top right corner to them. Take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.